Hey everyone, my name is Raven and I'm here joined today with
Dan Fornace. He, him, lead at Aether Studios.
obviously I want to kind of like ask some general questions, but the general premise of this interview is more talking about the original thing that we prompted on, which was Galvin being a love letter to heavies. Galvin is new to the like series for us, we've never seen them, we never seen it in lovers, dungeons, nothing. So what prompted that decision?
It all starts because had never seen the Avatar: The Last Airbender series, even though not only did everyone tell me to during Rivals One's lifetime, but they also assumed that I was a big fan, right? Because of how there's four elements and even the lore. I think Sylvano's trailer really set off alarm bells in people's heads because there's a part where we don't say Fire Nation, but we say something like very similar, right? I think we say the Age of Fire, Scorched to the Land, or something.
Oh man.
So I had during the pandemic, I went through, I think like a lot of people did, and I watched the whole first series, watched the whole second series, and after watching Legend of Korra, I was like, all right, we got to get Metalbender had already kind of been loose, right, as an Earth Elemental, but I was like, we got to do Metalbender, and
Mhm.
pretty much from the beginning, I was like, I want to do a Crag 2.0, right? I want to take things
Yeah.
I like about Crag. I think like the very first idea of Crag 2.0 was like he'll be metal and his up will be a platform instead of a pillar. And that's kind of like the very first notes on paper.
Mhm.
So because he's Crag 2.0, that's kind of why he ended up a heavy. And then the metal bending was kind of inspired by what you see in Legend of Korra.
That prompts me to a more personal question. You excited for the fighting game that's dropping?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably check it out. I think the fighting game's interesting because it definitely feels I've gone in and out of traditional fighters. I worked on Killer Instinct 2013, so I kind of
Yeah.
learned the games right before then, so I could have like a basis. But because it's a lot of time to work and play our own fighting game, I haven't
Mhm.
been as up to date on like I don't play much Street Fighter Six. I played a little bit of Strive, but not much. So I feel like this one's going to be really good if you're into fighting games, right? Like
Yeah.
there seems to be like a lot of cool, like a lot of creative things they're doing. But yeah, I'm more interested in like the yeah, kind of how they take the franchise and adapt it. So I'll definitely play it, but I have a feeling I won't be very good at it.
Are you like excited for Invincible versus? I know like those are, I mean those are your, old coworkers, and
Yeah, I got to hang out with them last year at Evo. So yeah, a lot of the guys. So Mike, like the kind of I think he's executive producer on the game, but the lead producer on that team was the producer on Killer Instinct, Mike Roulette. So even Dave Hall, who's the design director, was I think he was like animation, like head of animation on Killer Instinct at Double Helix. So yeah, a lot of the guys from Double Helix are on that team. So that's cool. I mean, it really does feel just watching footage and stuff. It does feel like it's very, you can see the DNA in it from Killer Instinct. So I'm definitely gonna play that. I have a feeling I'll be better at that one, just because not only my experience on Killer Instinct, but that game seems like it is going to be more accessible, right? If you're coming in and you're not as up to date on fighters.
Galvin was never trying to hide the fact that he was Crack 2.0. It is very much like a love letter to heavies. So we see references to characters like Bowser, PM Charizard, all kinds of characters like that. So what would you say like the main inspirations that carried over were in particular? How many of these things were just like coincidence that this is kind of like Charizard Nair, or no, that was Charizard Nair?
Yeah, some of them are very deliberate, right? I think the most deliberate reference has to be the run, right? And it's funny because when like he ended up as a dinosaur, and that was really just me kind of wanting to just do a dinosaur for a while. Like one where because in rivals we kind of tend to we take like a animal, I don't know, archetype, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
Maple, for example, is she's supposed to be like a couple animals that climb trees all put together. So you can't say she's not exactly a squirrel and not exactly a weasel and not exactly a raccoon. She's kind of like everything. So I knew I want to do that with like a dinosaur where we combine like pieces from, our favorite dinosaurs, especially since a lot of the guys working on it were like 90s kids.
Mm.
We grew up with like Jurassic Park and things. But it wasn't. It's funny because it wasn't always going to be the Metal Bender was going to be that, right? Because even in creatures, there's a character, Zolt, who is a metal card that we did,
Mhm.
who was also like a possibility. And that was like, um, I guess he's like a pangolin. He was just supposed to be like another wall runner.
I think I've seen
Um,
like the icon in Rivals too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's kind of like another wall runner. Definitely, he wouldn't feel, you know, Galvin's like kind of, um, reanimated, fossil, right? That kind of got us really excited of like making a dinosaur skeleton out of metal and bringing it back to life. But this character would have been more, Crag's actual, same timeline. It's just like a metal variation of it.
Mhm.
I think we had a lot more like lore and kind of interest to do, especially the idea of just reanimating a metal
Mhm.
fossil got us excited. So that's what got us to dinosaur. And then once we wanted to do a dinosaur and we gave him kind of like ankylosaurus tail, that kind of pushed us towards certain references, right?
Mhm.
Because if he didn't have a tail, he probably wouldn't have any Charizard, right? He would have like
Oh.
really any Charizard. Maybe I guess he doesn't need his tail to have like the Flare Blitz,
Yeah.
which is funny that that move ended up looking so similar to Flare Blitz because in the design doc, even when we started implementing him, that move wasn't. It didn't look like that. That move was literally I was like, oh, he's a metal dinosaur. Like I wanted to do a Transformers thing where he like actually turns into this tank that is made out of, his pieces, right? So he
Yeah.
literally just like transformers into a tank, dashes forward. That's how it was in the design doc. That was the plan. The reason we bailed on it was one, Trevor's like, this is gonna look so stupid. He wasn't a believer. But two, the way we do skins, that
Mhm.
meant we'd have to make a Galvin for every outfit, and we'd have to make
Ugh.
Galvin tank for every single outfit, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, is it worth for just one move to have a whole new mesh?
Mhm.
Um, so that's what we bailed on that. The move was always functionally going to kind of be how it plays, but yeah, the visual of Flare Blitz was kind of done later. And then yeah, some of the other references, I think some of the ones you noted, like Bowser and stuff, definitely on purpose. We also put like a little Falco in him, especially with that down air.
Yeah.
Um, just because it's funny because like we as metal, right? If you think of like, kind of the spacies are fast fallers.
Mhm.
We were also thinking like, okay, well, what's some of the weaknesses that heavies kind of have? And it's like, all right, if we give him, something like a dare where he can get you to the ground and do resets off of that, um, that can kind of ideally make up for what heavies sometimes lack, right? Where they have slower aerials and they
Yeah.
don't necessarily have ways to tech chase all the time.
I'm saying it like Galvin is a love letter to heavies because that's what it feels like. The character feels like this is someone who plays heavy characters in Plat Fighters and knows why they just don't feel that certain scratch in your brain that like a spacey character does. But Galvin doesn't have that problem. Galvin feels like almost still a spacey, and I think maybe Dare could be one of the examples because I remember early on to Galvin, even at Evo, playing with like you and the other devs there. I was already going for like Dare downbeat. Like it felt so natural to repeat that like pattern. So I guess the way to phrase that is, was Galvin a love letter to heavies, or was Galvin a creation and just kind of seeped into the heavy world?
Yeah, it's funny because if Trevor wasn't gameplay lead on Rivals 2, I think we would have had another even more heavy, right? Even more Dan heavy, which I would consider Crag as like the
Yeah.
epitome of a Dan heavy. And I mean Edalus too. I think Trevor came in, after Edalus was basically already done.
Mm-hmm.
So both those characters, kind of like more my style. I think like the spacey stuff that came in was because one, not only was Trevor gameplay lead and kind of we're looking at different references, but he looked at our roster and he was like, okay, well we probably don't want to run back like another, pure heavy because we already had um, Crag, Loxodon, Atlas. um like in the game.
Mhm.
So I think like part of like why not only did we go for that dare, but also like make sure that he could kind of have a pretty disgusting advantage state, was just so he feels different. And then that's even why his size, like in my head, I was always imagining him like kind of even bigger than he is in game.
Yeah.
Um, but again, Trevor was kind of looking at what our roster had, um, currently, right? Like,
Mhm.
especially since we made Crag a lot bigger than Rivals 1,
Yeah.
and just making sure that there was some variety in our heavies, right? So not only is he, definitely a heavy, but he doesn't have the same properties as, Crag exactly, or as Edilus, or
Yeah.
as Loxodon.
But Galvin is a very, Pterosaur creature. It hunches as it plays, as it moves, as it dashes, or even just as it stands. It's very much curled up, and so I think that's where we notice that distinction a lot. The taunt where Galvin gets down and does the magnet release. That's like one of the moments you really see. Like Galvin is not. Galvin walks on two legs, but Galvin is a beast, an animal, and I really like that in Galvin. It felt very honest to making a character, something new. Something Rivals gets critiqued for a lot is that it copies so much from maybe like traditional fighters, but or not traditional plat fighters that we know of. But Galvin
Mm.
felt like that's the people making this character made something. It's not copy paste. That's a unique character, and it's showing that Rivals has the potential to keep doing that. I think you guys did a great job with that in Slade and stuff too. Um, one more big one I got for Galvin is talking about. I noticed this, and I might be reaching, but I need confirmation. Was there any attachment to like Ben 10 and Galvin? Anything with the Galvins, the green exterior, the armor, the idea of the Omnitrix colors and stuff? Anything like that, or am I reaching?
It's funny because like Ben 10 is just ever so slightly after like kind of my time as, like I said, 90s kid, but I'm a little
Mhm.
bit on the older side. That yeah, I never some of the shows I went back, right? Like I mentioned Avatar going back. I don't know any Ben 10. So none of it was necessarily on purpose from me. Diego was the lead animator on Galvin, so if there's anything that he did, he might have. I don't think Trevor and I never discussed Ben 10, so anything is kind of coincidental. Like even the green, right? The green for the armor, we
Yeah.
knew we wanted something. It's kind of supposed to be like oxidized copper, right? Was the
Yes.
idea. So then when he's reinforced, it's like chrome, it's shiny. That's like we had this idea of this chrome skeleton of like when he's like it's
Mhm.
supercharged, and we were like, what would be a nice version of like the off of that?
Yeah.
And we really liked how like the greens and the brown worked, as opposed to we could have went for just like a rusted look, but then Galvin's colors would have to be a lot different, right? Because
Mhm.
he's when he's turned off, if you went for say orange for the metal, then his colors couldn't be brown, right? So we'd
Oh,
have to, he'd be a different design on his default then.
that's a challenge of it. So not only are you guys making a character from nothing, but like understanding the limitations of like how are you going to make this character visibly uh you know understandable from even a spectator point of view. And I think you guys did a great job. You could have just Galvin buried in amber and comes back that way, but instead you use galvanization for Galvin being what it is. Talking about that galvanization is the process of coating, like I forget what it's called, coating like metals in zinc to prevent that rust. Like that concept of how Galvin gets to live through the ages is very like I loved it. I loved it a lot. It genuinely made me like have to Google up what that word meant, and then to find out the meaning, I was like, that right there is exactly why I love Rivals.
The name is something we jumped around it a lot, but like when we it was funny because we, in the design docs, right? It was kind of just like, what did we call it? Oh, reinforced is what it was
Mm,
first written as in the design doc. You were either reinforced or you weren't, right? That was
mm,
kind of galvanized. But then as we were brainstorming different options, I think like calling him Galvin and then calling the state galvanized, like both excited us. And then exactly, yeah, we kind of dug into like what it meant and how, what this means for the metal, the different visuals of the metal. And we were like, it ended up too perfect, right? Like we couldn't we it married so well that we like that name and the visual of being galvanized kind of ended up winning, which I'm happy with because like
Very
I think some other name in reinforced it doesn't quite feel as synergistic as it does what we launched with.
I know when I got access to the early access creator build for Galvin, when I was doing like, I made my giant comprehensive video talking about Galvin. I remember in there certain times, like, I was studying like the data and stuff, trying to understand what broke drill, what didn't break drill. I was seeing the word reinforced in there over and over and over again. And I remember talking to other creators and being like, what do you, is reinforced just galvanization? Like, no, well, we're seeing it even when it's not like a galvanized item. So what is reinforced a condition? I remember we had all these theory crafts and stuff. So it's fun to know now. It's probably just
No, it was
it's
just a
probably just a
name.
placeholder.
Yeah, I think what happened with reinforced was probably yeah, there was probably like one, it got left, and then two, there was probably things that changed, right? I don't know if we ever planned on like drills being, you know, uh more than one hit or anything like that, but
Mhm.
there was a point. Yeah, I mean, even the drill mechanic changed a lot because originally they were going to be like these metal structures he was building that actually attached to the ground. But I think like the floating drills is just
I like it a
much
lot
easier
better.
to do. Yeah, it's much easier to pull off.
Especially with how you guys did like Yuletide Galvin. You guys made the Christmas tree, you've had the bulbs, and then you have the drills coming out. They still look like drills, right? On the Yuletide, I don't own that one. But I know the
Yeah,
Halloween
yeah,
one you guys did like candy corn. I'm like, that's really good. That's really good.
yeah. I like the Halloween is probably my favorite Galvin skin still.
I talked about this with Matt Worrell when we did his interview uh, about the idea of how characters like Shovel Knight and Ori were not going to be coming back to Rivals 2, that the plan at the time is no guest characters. Um, Firstly, has that changed? And second of all, we talked about reusing their kits in the new characters. We can see that Shovel Knight was a huge part into like Slade, just like buying items and having a currency, a kind of playstyle. But would you say there's any plans to like use some of Ori's old kit at this time?
Yeah, I would say so. One thing we made sure of too is like even on Slade, we I think high level he has inspiration. I think when you actually get into his kit,
Mhm.
there's only like a handful of moves, right? That you could say
Yeah,
like obviously Dare and Down Tilt I think are two that like have some of the most similarities, but they still play a lot different.
yeah, yeah,
So
very different.
one goal of Slate is like, in the scenario where let's say the character did come back, like they could definitely exist in the same game, right? I think like, if we did Shovel Knight, for example, in Rivals 2, I would just, they can collect each other's things to count as their own currency. Like I think that would be hilarious and like make that matchup really interesting. So kind of like, Fox and Falco, became different over time. Like we were never going to take a move set and just, go as close as say like a melee clone. Like we were always thinking, like Wolf and Fox and Falco and say Ultimate in terms of archetypes. And then the Ori question. I mean, Ori's funny because Ori was the first character in Rivals 1 where it kind of works like a Rivals 2 character in that I did the high level, I did all the specials, and then Trevor kind of came in and did all the normals, which is funny because he was a Captain Falcon main. So like right away, he's like, "All right, well now's my chance to get a character that I'm familiar with." So that's why you see the up air, the back air, lots of you know, kind of playing like a really fast, tiny Falcon. Um, so in that regard, I think Trevor um, would love to do a character that's similar to Ori. In terms of like how well, and also similar to Falcon, right?
Yeah,
In terms of how similar the specials and the high level would be. I don't know. It depends. I think there's like a couple things we really like. That again, you could imagine, never say never, but could exist in the same game, right? Like we would probably do it similar to Slate, where it's a character that has some similarities, maybe some similar high level stuff, maybe specifically a move like Bash, I think was it was a lot of work in Rivals, and it continued being a lot of work because every time we added a new character, we had to make sure it worked with Bash, and whatever its stage control or projectile was had to be Bash compatible. But I think it's one of the coolest moves in Rivals One.
Yeah.
So I think something like Bash and something like the high level could exist, but I think we would treat it like Slade, where we would never just like get too close or full up replace a previous character, because even though we're not planning guests right now, we don't want to like shut the door on
Yeah, of course.
that possibility of bringing back either of them, or other characters even from other IPs.
We talked about this a lot with Matt, and I think you and I brought this up at Evo. Is there any kind of idea about maybe doing some form of like a Rivals 2 definitive edition? Where maybe after a few more years, when you guys say, hey, we're not making new characters, the game's pretty much done. We're just going to keep balancing it and adding like new skins and stuff. Any idea where something would happen like that, full on console release to all like consoles, and then also workshopping more integrated, something like that? Or do you think Rivals 2 is just going to keep being Rivals 2?
I think right now, like the way we're viewing is it maybe treating the console launch kind of like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where I mean, for us, it's kind of more out of necessity than necessarily like what's the ideal, pie in the sky goals, right? Like, we were such a big team last year, right? Because game launched, did really good, but we knew we wanted to keep things going. And if you read my Medium post from um, the start of this year, right, we had to let some people go. We're still in a spot where right now we were pushing for the April update to do really well, and it has done well, but we're still a big team, so it's like okay, like we're basically operating under not right now, we're not hiring anyone new, but we're still trying to reduce burn where we can, right, on our side, and just seeing like what are our goals, right, coming now, because last year we got ahead and got a lot of skins, but now this year it's like okay, let's like you'll start seeing us do less skins, maybe a little less frequent, but like keeping the quality bar as high is something we're doing. And it's the same for console, right? We're basically like okay, what's a point in development where we'll be happy with the roster and we'll be happy with the gameplay features, and when we're at that point, then it's like, all right, all hands on deck on pushing our team towards something like console. Which means someone like Trevor, who right now has the, extremely pooled, spread thin job, right? Of like live balance, new characters, head engineer, just kind of a lot of stuff that's on his plate. It's like, all right, well, eventually we're gonna have to like kind of pause or downplay his other responsibilities and be like, all right, let's try to get basically what is a definitive edition, right? Like a 1.0 for console, and let's get everybody on that. And that's something that we're going to be focusing on soon. Not quite yet, right now, we said we're doing 4 characters this year, and we've done, if you've seen, we've done a lot of updates this year that are workshop items, stage, casual stages, all that stuff. So we're definitely still on kind of that expanding the features, but I think as this year progresses more, we're going to start going into kind of focusing, right, kind of like funneling in on what's required for uh I guess what you could consider a 1.0, if you consider like a wider
Yeah.
release like a 1.0.
Yeah, I define that as like a 1.0. How is the game going to continue to make money and profit? These are more things that not the average player is worried about, but the people in the esports scene are worried about. Is like, hey, is the game going to continue to get support? Are we going to be able to keep seeing it at majors, or is it going to eventually kind of just stop? We're seeing a lot of like pullback with I know SBS is now off the team, and he's going to be doing stuff for grassroots, which is great. But is there anything that I guess the players can do to see the game continue to get support? I know you guys have made a lot of skins, a lot of people bought those, but is there anything else like that? I know there's the Evo skins where we kind of donate a bit to the tournament, but also the other like $5 goes back to you guys. Is there anything like that that's coming out?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is so in April we launched it. We launched gifting, right? And it
Mhm.
works for if you want to get stuff for bucks. So if you just have extra bucks on your account, like, share the love with your people you play with, especially if they haven't played in a bit. Be like,
Mhm.
hey man, I sent you a skin. The other big one is you can just, when new bundles come out, you can just purchase those for you can get one for yourself and then you can buy one for a friend too. And I think like right now, because we're kind of at the point where like marketing is really hard for us because if you're interested in this type of game, you've probably
You've
been
heard
told
of it.
about it over the last year and you've probably picked it up, right? Like we've done, it's, in terms of like Steam units and stuff, like it's done pretty well. We're not at Rivals 1 units yet, but Rivals 1 had the advantage of like first we saturated the competitive audience and then like Workshop kind of carried us to a
Yeah.
second audience after 2019. So we're not at that stage in Rivals 2 yet, which is why we prioritize Workshop, but there's still that's kind of I
It's
mentioned
it's a
we're
lot harder.
yeah we're not focused on 1.0 because we still got a lot to do for Workshop as well. So yeah, I would say like the big thing is like okay, well a lot of people have picked it up, so it's like now as a new player or as an existing player, it's like how do you get people back and yeah, just like get, the in-game um transactions is a big part of our business now in Rivals 2, which is not something that was true in Rivals 1, right? Like we made pretty much
No.
all our money off of just selling the game and doing Steam sales. So now we do need to, make sure people are picking up the the skin bundles when they come out and also yeah, just getting your friends back and like reminding them like, "Hey, I remember you played Olympia. They just launched like a new Olympia skin. It's awesome." Um, so just kind of talking to your friends who might have lapsed and getting them to check out updates and check out cosmetics. That's like a big thing that I think would help us right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's how I've gotten my friends in, being like, hey, Slade's in, very reminiscent to like your desire of like, my friend's a big fan of Link Up B, so I'm like, hey, Link Up B, it's back, baby. Down throw up
I
B.
know. It's
Um,
so good too. It's so
I
good.
love it. I love hitting him. People were like, oh, is that true? I'm like, I don't care. That's Link, baby.
Dude,
Um,
out of shield grounded uppy right now is like one of the best. It has to be the best out of shield. He might just have Slay might have the two best out of shield options in the game with Nair and
by
uppy.
far.
They're both insane.
Sex kick lasting that long is like it's caught me off guard, and I'm like, oh man, it's just like the old days, which is good.
Yeah.
That mental idea of like you have to remember his last longer. Like Lorena when she's on the Miss Tech, like you have to remember she can grab you and shield. You can't just
Yeah.
autopilot these decisions. But I know that's how I've gotten into people. And I have people. I had a coworker at my old job that's not my esports job, but my other job, and even my coworker knew what Rivals 2 was. My current coworker at my esports job knows what Rivals 2 is, and it's jarring to me. I didn't expect that to happen, but people do know about Rivals 2. I think what they're missing is a desire or a purpose to play, um, and I don't know how that can change. I know I talked to Matt about doing like maybe a creator pass too. I think that's a big purchase that gets a lot of people wanting to buy because they want to support their favorite creator or get like a creator skin. Um, but I wonder, do you guys have any plans for like maybe making the R2CS something that feels like people want to compete? Like, dude, I gotta enter in like a major this year because I gotta get like top 100, or I gotta get like maybe some version of like an HM, something where it's like, hey, this player did not make our top 100 list, but they're considered like a very great player, or here's a player that we noticed like drastically went from being an O2er, stuff like that. Is there anything you can think of that might start to maybe push people to really want to try competing?
Yeah, it's tough because, when we're in a spot where we need to reduce costs, right? It kind of like everything gets reduced, right? So like our ability to, do everything, right? I mentioned like doing less skins this year. Just like, we're gonna even like the characters, right? I mentioned April that it's gonna be a little bit longer, right? That we're gonna be doing August and December, right? Instead of what we last year we did July and October for the releases. Um, it kind of hits esports as well, right? Like we don't have the funds necessarily to to do everything that we'd like to do. And then it's also time as well, right? Like everything is a time investment. So like, yeah, in that regard, it is more just like clever ideas, right? Trying to get the best bang for the buck. I think like Evo is right now, like that's our little, feather in our cap. Offrand is doing a lot. Ludwig's doing a lot to really push Evo this year, make the most out of this opportunity. Huge thanks to Rick and the whole Evo team. And then honestly, just our community, right? Like how well we showed last year really gave us this possibility to be a main game. So it's really like we gotta put everything into it, right? Put our whole muscle into this. In terms of like where do we go after that? It's a little unknown, right? It's a little bit like, okay, we know we still want to have events. There's R2 CS season 2 that George is working on now to try to get an announcement out so people can have an idea of like, hey, what's how am I earning points this year? How is it different than last year? So we're trying to get that out ASAP. Um, but yeah, it's like we basically can't do everything we'd like to do. But I do agree with you that right now, like what we can offer as a player is like how cool it is to kind of go to these competitions and compete. Um, and then yeah, it's just really hard in a post-pandemic world where there isn't a new Smash game. It's hard for rivals to be like the driver of that, right? Like historically, the way we got people into Rivals One competitive was, being at Smash events and kind of an alternative, right? Like, oh, I play Smash 4 or I play Ultimate, but I really like how Melee looks. And it's like, here's a game that's right in the middle, right? Where it's like, it feels like I when I watch it, I'm like doing stuff that it feels as fast as Melee, but it's more accessible, right? It's like, we have a buffer and you can wave dash and things like that. Um, so we don't have that as much, and without like that AAA budget, it is very challenging for us to kind of be like the cool thing is winning a big tournament. Um, but yeah, it is a goal, and we're going to try to keep pushing on it, but just doing it, cost effectively.
In the new Fun for All patch that dropped earlier this month, did you have a favorite like feature or addition that like in particular you loved? I know you talked about like the Crag, uh, rolling casual stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big ones is honestly like the queue changes are huge, right? So I still play ranked. I stream a little bit. We'll see if I can keep going like I have been the last couple weeks. But I'm able to, even the update was the start of this month. I can still find casual matches when that's featured, and I can still find 2v2 matches when that's featured. I haven't tried the cruise because I don't necessarily like to play crew as a team of one. So the times when I play crews is when I have, two other devs and we want to we want to go ham. So I haven't tried crews since the update. So hopefully people are finding matches there too. But
Mhm.
I know 2v2 and free for all, no one was finding matches before the April update. So just being able to hop in casual and every time
It's
I've
really
hopped
nice.
in, I haven't even had to do a 1v1 yet. I had one where the two of us did wait, right? Neither of us readied up and we waited for two more people to come. Um, but I haven't had to do a 1v1 every time I've done casual. It's been 4 players. The
That's
last one I
nice.
did, we even turned on teams. So we were playing like teams with items on casual stages. So just that ability, at least in the US right now, I'm sure in EU it might still be tough. Hopefully the backfill is helping there in EU for casual, right? Um, but for NA, like, I think all both West and East Coast, yeah, that's the most exciting thing is being able to actually get 4 player matches and play doubles and play crew and play free for all. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's been nice. I'm happy that I can go on doubles and I'm finding games. Me and my buddies aren't waiting like 2 hours. It's really nice. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you so much for doing this with me, Dan. I can't wait to see more that's come out. The game's changed so much since I started playing it, and I'm really happy with it, and I'm really happy with Galvin's release being the character that it is.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'll have to hopefully catch you next time and we'll have even more stuff to talk about.